Hey Katie.
Hey Sarah.
Great to meet up with you again, here for another Mozart Snapshot.
Thanks, it's great to see you too, as always.
So where are we going today?
Today we are going to the world-renowned Salzburger Marionettentheater.
The magical world of the puppets. The Salzburger Marionettentheater presents full Mozart operas in puppet version, don't they?
Yes, and that's actually why they have been nicknamed the puppets of Mozart.
And let me guess, they started with the Zauberflöte.
That is indeed their most popular production of all time, but it's not actually what they began with. Their very first production was the early Singspiel of Mozart called Bastian and Bastian K50.
Interesting. So when was the Salzburger Marionettentheater founded?
It was founded in 1913 by a man named Anton Eicher, and it stayed in his family for 99 years, passing first to his son Hermann, and then in 1977 to his granddaughter Gretel. And it was Gretel that really brought the marionettes to worldwide artistic prominence.
So Anton Eichner was a puppeteer?
No, he was actually a sculptor who was famous for his beautiful altarpieces, but he also had a fascination for moving figures, and this led him to meet a man in Munich called Papa Schmidt, who was known as one of the great marionettists of his time.
Did he study with Papa Schmidt?
Yes, he apprenticed with Papa Schmidt and then developed his own unique concept of the marionettes and put his skills as a sculptor to use by creating exquisite marionettes. And the rest, as they say, is history.
I'm excited.
Yeah, so why don't we go on in backstage and enter this magical world.
So 1913 is long after Mozart's time, but I guess they had puppet theater in Austria his day.
Oh, puppet theater goes back centuries and has its origins in Italy. String puppets called fantoccini and glove puppets called burattini were popular already in the 15th century there. And this, of course, was brought to Austria because of traveling puppet groups and Pulcinella showmen.
And where did these traveling groups play?
Normally, they set up temporary portable theaters in town squares.
So you said that the Salzburger Marionettentheater is famous for its productions of Mozart's operas. When or where did the idea of using puppets for performing operas originate?
Well, that also goes back to Italy because opera developed in the 17th century in Italy and it became extremely popular, and so the marionettes obviously had to keep up with the time too, and so they had to learn to sing.
So when did they first appear in opera?
Actually in Venice in 1679, and already then by the 1680s it was the rage there. And again, it came to Austria, first to Vienna and then around the country, and became very popular through the 18th century.
I can imagine the kleine Mozartl being fascinated by Marionettentheater.
Oh, definitely. Der kleine Mozartl loved every kind of theater, from opera to ballet to pantomimes, farces, and of course, marionettes were no exception. So.
What a beautiful theater.
Did you know this was not always a theater? This was actually a hotel. It was called the Hotel Mirabelle, and this was the hotel restaurant. But then, at a certain point, it was completely remodeled and became the home of the puppets of Mozart.
They have to be very happy here. How many performances does the Salzburger Marionettentheater give each year?
Approximately 160 here at home, and then another 40 to 50 on tour around the world.
And where do they tour?
Really everywhere, from New York to Moscow to Abu Dhabi. And they also collaborate with big festivals, like, for instance, here, the Salzburg Festival, and with people like Peter Ustinov, Andras Schiff, Cecilia Bartoli, Jonas Kaufmann, just to name a few.
So to get back to marionette opera, I imagine it became so popular because it offered a more affordable alternative to real opera.
That's right. I mean, you know, not everybody could afford to attend La Scala. And equally, a lot of theaters could not afford expensive opera productions. And so the marionettes were a great alternative. But they also became popular with the nobility and upper classes simply because it was fun and entertaining. And, well, it's kind of funny, The marionettes were better actors and actresses in those days than many of the opera singers.
How interesting. And are there pieces that are especially written for those productions?
Yes, because patrons of the arts, like for instance Prince Esterhazy, who was Haydn's employer, commissioned operas specifically for marionettes.
So Haydn wrote puppet operas?
Yes, he wrote at least a half dozen. Unfortunately, only one of them has survived because the other ones were all destroyed in a fire in the Schloss Esterhazy in 1779. But luckily, we do have one, which is called Philemon and Baucis.
And where did Haydn's marionette operas perform originally?
Right there in Prince Esterhazy's castle, which is just across the Austrian border in present-day Hungary.
And so the Schloss Esterhazy is also where the opera that did survive was performed, right?
Yes, and that actually went back to 1773 and was written to commemorate the visit of Empress Maria Theresa to Prince Esterhazy's castle.
And did you like it?
She did like it so much that she decided to have it brought to Vienna, and so they had to transport the entire theater to Schönbrunn Palace. And hey, are you the queen of the night? Let's go ahead and go on backstage and meet the artistic director of the Salzburger Marionettentheater, Philippe Brunner. We very much enjoyed seeing the Queen of the Night in action.
Yeah.
It's a pleasure to meet you, Mr. Brunner, and thank you for letting us come to the Salzburg Marionettentheater today and learn about the wonderful artistry of the marionettes.
Yeah, very welcome. Nice to have you.
Thank you. So, you are famous at this theater for doing many, many, many Mozart operas. What is the reason why it was actually begun with Bastian and Bastian?
Well, of course, we are in the birth city of Mozart, here in Salzburg. And Mozart Bastian was the first play because it has such a reduced number of puppets or persons. So it's only 3 persons.
Okay.
The Marionette Theater in the very beginning was a family affair. It was founded by Anton Eicher, and his wife would sew the costumes. He himself would carve the heads, would build the puppets.
Right.
And he and his 2 sons would perform the performances. So they were only 3.
Okay, and so luckily for him, Mozart wrote an opera with 3 characters.
Exactly.
It was often accompanied by piano or string quartets, is this right?
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. And these were friends or students of the Mozarteum University. And so he formed a whole ensemble, which was of course beautiful because it was live music.
Right. And how long does it take for somebody to apprentice to become a puppeteer or a marionettist?
So we say at least 6 to 8 years, like a whole instrument.
Okay.
So you have to imagine our ensemble is formed from people of different ages, different areas from the world where they come from, but they are all handicraft people, because then they work in our workshop. And then they have to learn to perform with the marionettes. So of course we choose people who have a musical background, who are maybe trained with an instrument.
And people who have a passion for it, like yourself.
Absolutely. Without passion, it's not possible at all.
Right.
It's a very difficult thing to learn because it's very, you need, how do you say, dexterity. Yeah?
Yes.
So in your fingertips. Because the whole cross, you see the playing cross, we call it, which was created by the founder of the theater, Anton Eicher, consists of this little T-shaped thing and the triangle here for the head. This one fits very well into your palm, and you can make movements that are very human-like and connect movements.
Okay.
And this is a speciality of the Salzburg marionettes.
And how many strings does
So
a typical marionette have?
The Queen of the Night, is special. She has less strings than the others. She makes a different movement with her hands, so she needs to open widely, so it needs a different technique. And she has no strings at her legs because she is flying all the time. So
Okay.
she's not
Right.
the typical human puppet.
Right,
Yeah?
okay.
But of course, every character has to be operated differently. So
Right.
we have to create a woman, a young guy, whatever, a child. So this is has to be in our field of expression. So
Right.
we have to be the hidden actors,
Right.
actually. So we give all the emotions through our hands into the puppet. But of course, we have to know the text, the libretto, the music by heart.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow, look
So
at all of
here
these
we are.
puppets.
Exactly, in our puppet chamber. Here you see about 600 to 700 active puppets, so the
Okay.
repertoire of 12 to 15 different pieces we perform at the moment. Of course, a huge tradition is on the Mozart operas.
Now, you mentioned that most of the puppets have more strings than the Queen of the Night.
Yes, I show
Yeah.
you here Tamino in the magic flute. Yeah, so he has actually, normal, and you see this little wooden piece here for the arms, where we control the arms and where we can even close.
Oh, I
The
see.
arms,
Yeah,
so-
so in the Queen of the Night, there's only the
There's
T and then
only
the triangle.
strings,
Okay,
yeah,
and then
yeah,
not the
yeah,
extra one in
yeah,
the front.
Exactly. And he has also, of course, strings at his legs so that he can walk. Yeah, so.
Incredible. And he even has wrist joints so
Yes.
that the wrists move.
All the big joints a normal human being has are really built into the puppet. Of course, he has no joint in the fingers or so, but the audience, when they see a show, they often say, but they move their fingers.
It's an
have-
optical
they have
illusion.
mimics.
Yeah.
What's going on? So it's a real optical illusion.
And then over here,
Yes.
here we have Papageno and his little
Absolutely.
Papagena.
Yes. So he's kind of an icon to our theater. So
Yes.
I think it's the best known puppet from the Salzburg Marionettes, and he has toured the world. So since 1952, I think in about 10,000 performances of the
Oh,
Magic
wow.
Flute,
Incredible.
he had his appearances. Yeah.
Now, the Magic Flute is definitely the most popular of everything in your
Yes,
repertoire
yes,
here. Okay.
absolutely, and it still is. So, and it's still, the puppets are still the same since their creation in 1952. So we see here Don Giovanni, for example, here.
He's absolutely beautifully done.
Yes.
And which year is he
And,
from?
1966.
Okay.
Yeah, and Donna Elvira
Uh-huh.
next to him. Then we have Osmin of the Seraglio.
Uh-huh.
We have even Apollo and Hyacinthus by
Okay.
this very early Mozart opera.
Yes.
And here Dorabella and Fiordiligi from Così fan tutte,
Okay.
Don Alfonso from Così, Leporello and Zerlina from Don Giovanni,
Okay.
and here down here Figaro and Susanna and the Count from Le Nozze di Figaro, and Podestà from La Finta Giardiniera. So the tradition of performing in Salzburg is very much based on the illusion that a little human being is apparent on stage. So that was always Anton Eicher's aim, that the audience thinks, okay, there is a human being walking around there. And this interesting thing is that if you sit there outside in the audience, watch a show, after 5 to 10 minutes you don't see the strings anymore. And the audience is very much part of the show, because the puppet is actually only a piece of wood.
Right.
But of course we bring it to life, but the audience has to create their own feelings. So it's a very personal art. So
Yes.
every member of the audience has a different feeling after the show.
Right.
And sees different aspects.
But music is this way too. I
Yeah.
mean, every piece of music affects a different person in a
Yeah.
different way. And
Yeah.
I mean, this is what makes art so special, is that
Absolutely.
there is no black or white. This is what you must see. This is what you must feel. It speaks to each individual person in his own way.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, thank you so very much for this extremely interesting and fun
Thank you.
time here in
Thanks
the
for being
theater.
here.
Yes.
So he's now running off stage. Huh? So